In this section, we'll learn about authentication, which is a mechanism to verify user credentials. In most web applications, authentication is managed by the session that takes the user inputs such as username, email, or phone number along with the password. Once users are authenticated, they can access certain pages in the application. In addition, their credentials will be stored in sessions for a certain amount of time, so that they can access the application without having to enter the credentials again and again. There are a couple of options to implement authentication in our Laravel application. The first option is Laravel Breeze. Laravel Breeze is a simple, minimal implementation of all of Laravel's authentication features, including login, registration, password reset, email verification, and password confirmation. Laravel Breeze uses Tailwind CSS for styling. The second option is Jetstream. Jetstream provides authentication features, such as login, registration, email verification, two-factor authentication, session management, API via Laravel Sanctum, and optional team management features. Jetstream uses Tailwind CSS for styling, and offers you to choose Livewire or Inertia for authentication scaffolding. The third option is Laravel Fortify. Laravel Fortify is a front-end agnostic authentication back-end implementation for Laravel. It provides authentication features such as login, registration, password reset, email verification, and two-factor authentication. However, since Fortify is a front-end agnostic authentication, you need to handle the authentication view layer on your own. The last option is Laravel UI. Like Breeze, Laravel UI also provides a minimal implementation of all of Laravel's authentication features, but Laravel UI uses Bootstrap CSS for styling. Now, since we're using Bootstrap CSS for styling our app, we'll be using Fortify, because it is much more flexible than Laravel UI. However, we'll see how to use another authentication option in the upcoming lessons. Alright, let's open up our terminal, then install Fortify package. Once it is installed, we need to publish Fortify's resources using the vendor publish command. As you can see, the command published Fortify's configuration file and published some actions to our app. It also published the Fortify service provider and database migration. Last, let's open up the app.php. Then add in the providers array, the Fortify service provider. Okay, we've set up Laravel Fortify in our app. Let's move on to the next lesson and see how to handle user registration. In this lesson, we'll learn how to add user registration to our application. So, if we open up our terminal and see our route with only vendor option, here we have a couple of routes provided by Laravel Fortify. And for now, we'll use login and register routes. Let's open up the main layout. It seems that the navbar brand still points to the index.html. Let's change it to the root route. Alright, let's change the login link to the login route. And then change the register link to the register route. Now, you can follow the same steps to the public layout. I'll do that behind the scene. Let's have a look. I'll click on the Register button. And here we'll get an error telling us that the register view cannot be found. To fix this, let's switch over to our editor. Then open the Fortify service provider. Then, inside the register method, let's register the register view by calling the Fortify register view method, which accepts a closure. Inside the closure, let's return a view, auth register view, which we'll create shortly. Alright, we've registered the auth register view for user registration. Let's now go to the Resources, Views folder. Create a new folder. Inside that folder, let's create a new file, register.blade.php. Inside the file, let's extend the main layout. Provide a section for title, and another one for the content. For now, let's add a message like so. Let's have a look. Now, the error is gone, and we see a register message displayed on the screen. Alright, let's finally add the registration form to our view. Let's grab the form markup from the application template. Let's copy this back to our project and paste it here. Next, let's set the form action to the register route. Let's see our routes again. Here, we use this post register route. If we take a look, it uses registered user controller, method store. Let's open the controller file. So here in the store method, it uses creates new users contract. Under the hood, this creates new users is bound to the create new user class in the action folder. And if we open the file, and see the create method, it does two things: validates the request input and stores the validated data in the database. So, if you need to add other inputs to your registration form, you need to adjust this method. Okay, back to our form. Then set the form action. Set the method to post. Add a CSRF directive. And then set the old input values to the name and email inputs. Let's also add validation stuff to the name, email, and password inputs. Next, let's adjust the login link. Alright, let's go back to the register template and find the styles for the authentication form. So let's copy this styles. In our project, let's go to the public folder, CSS, then open the custom.css. Paste it here, and have a look. Okay, here we see a registration form displayed on the screen nicely. Let the form inputs empty, then hit the register button. Here we see the validation error messages appear. Now, let's enter a valid user account. Then hit the register button again. Now I get a 404 error, because if we see here, it redirects to the home route which does not exist. So, once our account has been registered successfully, our account is also authenticated, and it will be redirected to the home route. For now, let's go to the config folder, then open the Fortify configuration file. If we take a look at the home option, it points to the route service provider, home constant. So, let's go to the home constant, and then change the path to the contacts path. I'll open an incognito window. And register a new user. Hit the register button. Okay, now it works as expected. In this lesson, we'll see how to add the signing users feature to our application. Since we have added the user registration feature in our app, adding the feature will be much easier. Alright, let's reopen the Fortify service provider. Then register the login view. By calling the login view method, then return the auth login view. Next, let's reopen the register view. Let's save this file as a new file and name it login.blade.php. Here, let's make some adjustments. Let's make multiple selections for all register texts. Then replace them with login. Don't forget to set the proper form action. And let's remove the name input from here, as well as the password confirmation input. Last, let's adjust this link. And set the target to the register route. Let's have a look. Here we cannot access the login route because after we've successfully registered, our account is authenticated. Since we don't have the logout feature implemented in our app, let's do that manually. To do that, let's open up our browser console, go to the application, cookies. Here, let's clear our application cookies. Let's now access our login form again. Okay, now it works. Let's enter an invalid account. Here we get a validation error message. Now I enter valid credentials. Okay, it works as expected, and I successfully signed in. In this lesson, we'll learn how to interact with the currently authenticated user. So here in the contact controller, I'll demonstrate retrieving the authenticated user in the index method. To interact with the authenticated user, we can use the auth facade. And we need to import it from Eliminate Support Facades. Now, to retrieve the currently authenticated user, we can call the user method. And here I'll use the Laravel DD helper function to display it on the screen. As you can see, the authenticated user instance is displayed on the screen. Now, sometimes we only need to retrieve only the authenticated user's ID. And we can do that by using the ID method. As you can see, now we get the authenticated user's ID. Besides using auth facade, you can also use the auth helper function like this. And here we get the same thing. And you may also access the authenticated user using the request instance. So I'll type hint the request class here, then call the user method. As you can see, we get the same result. Next, to determine if the user making an HTTP request is authenticated, we can use the check method like so. If we take a look, here I get the sign-in message. However, if I open an incognito window, then enter the same URL, now I get a guest message. Alright, let's now access the authenticated user in our view. Let's get rid of these lines from here. Also, remove this namespace, and also remove this request from the method parameter. Now, let's open up the main layout. Here, we'll show the login and register buttons only for unauthenticated users. To do that, we can use the blade if directive. Then use the check method from the auth facade. So, if the user is not authenticated, we'll show these buttons. Okay, now we no longer see the login and register buttons. With a similar approach, let's show these links only for the authenticated user. Then, for this dropdown, we can put it in the else directive. And I'll put the end of here. Also, let's show the current user's name here. Let's have a look. Here we'll see the current user's name displayed here, and the dropdown also appears. If I go to my second browser window, the buttons appear, while the dropdown, as well as the links here, disappear. Now, another way to check if the user is authenticated in the Blade template is to use the auth directive like so. While checking if the current user is not authenticated, we can use the guest directive. Let's have a look. Okay, we get the same result. In this lesson, we'll add two features to our authentication system. The first feature is to allow users to sign out. And the second one is to remember user login details when they sign in. Alright, let's first add a sign out feature. Let's open up our terminal and see our routes. As you can see, we have a logout route that uses the post HTTP method. So let's switch to the main layout. Find the logout link. Then replace this with a form. Let's set the form action to the logout route. Set the method to post. And then add a style to change the form display option to inline. Inside the form, let's add a CSRF directive. And then add a logout button with the drop-down item class. Let's have a look. Refresh. Let's click on the drop-down, then click on the logout link. Okay, we've successfully signed out and will be taken to the welcome page. With that, let's now add a remembering users feature that allows users to access our app without having to always log in every time they access their account. So, if we go to our database and take a look at the users table, here we'll find a remember token column. And what we need to do is to provide in our form a checkbox input with the name remember and let Fortify take care of the rest. Alright, let's go to the application template. Open the login.html. Then copy this markup, which contains a checkbox. Back to our project. Open the login view. Paste the code. Then add a name to the checkbox as remember. And give it a value, true. Okay, back to our browser. Then hit the login button. Before we enter our user credentials, let's open our browser console. So, if you remember, after the user successfully authenticated, we'll find a cookie, project name, followed by session. When we check the remember checkbox, there will be another cookie called remember to remember the user in the client side. For now, I'll enter the user credentials without checking the Remember Me checkbox. If I hit the login button, nothing was added to the cookies. If I go to my database, the Remember token column is still empty. Okay, I'll go back to my browser, then hit the logout button. I'll re-enter my credentials. and then check the Remember Me checkbox. If I hit the Login button, here we see a Remember Web added to the cookies. And if we take a look at our database, here the Remember column is longer empty. So, both values are used to remember the currently authenticated user. Okay, that's it. I'll see you in the next lesson. In this lesson, we will see how to protect our routes from being accessed by unauthenticated users. Alright, let's first create a new controller. Dashboard controller. And make it an invocable controller. Okay, let's open up the dashboard controller. Inside the invoke method, we'll return a dashboard view. Let's go to the Resources, Views folder. Then create a new file, dashboard.blade.php. Inside this file, let's extend the main layout. Add a section title, then add a section content. Then, let's go to our application template. Open the dashboard.html, then copy this content. Back to our project. Then paste the code inside the section content. Let's also replace the name with the authenticated user's name. Next, let's go to our route declaration. Then define a new route for the dashboard controller. Let's give it a save and have a look. Here, I get an error, attempt to read property name on null, because currently I haven't signed in. So, back to the dashboard view, and undo the last change. Here is the dashboard page displayed on the screen. Okay, let's now see how to protect this page at the route level from unauthenticated users. If we open up the kernel.php in the app HTTP folder, then go to the route middleware property. Here we'll see the auth middleware, which references the app HTTP middleware authenticate class. So all you need to do is attach this auth middleware in the controller's constructor or in the route definition. I'll go back to the dashboard controller. Add a class constructor. Then call the auth middleware like so. So, when the auth middleware detects an unauthenticated user, it will redirect the user to the login route. Let's have a look. As you can see, since I haven't authenticated, I'll be redirected to the login page. We can also protect our routes using route middleware. So let's disable these lines. And now I can access the page again. Let's go to our routes. Then attach the auth middleware like so. Back to the browser and refresh. Now I cannot access the page without signing in. However, if I sign in, now I can access the page. And with the route group and attaching the auth middleware, we can protect multiple routes declaration. So before I save the last change, I'll switch back to my browser and then log out. Now I'll enter the contacts page. Here I can access it. I'll switch back to my editor, then save the last change. Back to my browser again, and refresh. Now I cannot access the page anymore. Last, let's open up the route service provider. Then change the home path to the dashboard. I'll open an incognito window. And enter my credentials. Then hit the login button. Now I can access the dashboard page. Actually, let's go to the dashboard view. Then display here the authenticated user's name. Okay, I'll see you in the next lesson. In this lesson, we'll see how to enable the reset password feature in our authentication system. So, if we go to our terminal, then see our routes. Here, we'll use these forget password routes. The password.request is to show the form where users enter their email, while the password.email is to send the requested email to receive a reset password link. Then, this password reset route is used to update the actual password, while this reset password token is used for the reset password link. Alright, let's open up the login view. Find the Forget Your Password link. Then point it to the password.request route. Let's take a look. Here we get an error, since we haven't registered the corresponding view yet. So, let's reopen the Fortify service provider. Then register the password reset view by calling the request password reset link view method. Here, we'll return auth.password.request view. Next, let's go to the Resources, Views, Auth folder. Create a new folder, Password. Inside the folder, let's create a new file, request.blade.php. Actually, let's grab the code from the login view. Change the title to Reset Password. Then change the form action to password.email. Keep the email input and remove the rest. Let's go to the app template and open the request reset password.html. Let's copy this button back to our project, then replace this code. I'll change this class to py4. Let's have a look. Okay, here we see the reset password form displayed on the screen. Now, before we enter the email and hit this button, we need to set up our mailer configurations so that we can receive the reset password link. Let's open up the .env file. Then find the mail configuration variables. So here are the mail configuration variables. Laravel supports a variety of mail transport drivers to be used while sending an email, such as SMTP, sendmail, array, log, etc. If you're using log, Laravel will not send the actual email. Instead, it will be stored in the .log file. Here I use SMTP as a mail transport driver, and I use smtp.mailtrap.io as the mail host. During our development, using Mailtrap to capture our email is perfectly fine. If you don't have an account, just go to mailtrap.io and then register your account. Once you've registered, you can add index. Select your inbox. Go to SMTP settings. Select Laravel 7 or above, and then copy the SMTP configuration to the clipboard. Back to the .env file and paste them here. Once the mailer configuration is set up, let's try to enter an email. Then hit this button. I'm sure the reset password link has been sent. Let me go to Mailtrap. And here I get a reset password notification. However, before we do that, let's show a flash message once the email has been sent. So let's go back to the password request view. And for now, let's print out this session status. Back to our browser. Re-enter email, then hit the button. Here we see a message. Okay, back to our editor, then show the flash message in an alert. And I'll put it outside the form. Back to our browser. Re-enter email once again. Then hit the button. Okay, now the flash message is displayed nicely. Now, let me go to my Mailtrap account. And here I get a couple of emails. I'll select the last one, then hit the button. And now we'll get another error. Let's fix this issue in the next video. Alright, let's switch to Fortify Service Provider. Then register the reset password view. using the reset password view method. Next, since our view needs email input, password, and password confirmation, let's open up the register view. Save the file as a new file. We'll save it in the password folder, then name it edit.blade.php. Let's change the title to reset password. Change the form action to password.update. And then remove the name input. Let's switch to the password request view. Then copy this button. Back to here. Then replace this with the previous code. Change the button's text to reset password. Back to here. Then copy this flash message. Now, to make the password update form works, we need to send back the token from the URL. So here, let's add a hidden input. I'll put it here. And call it token. Then, to get the token, we can use the route method from the request object. And we also need to fill the email input with the email from the request object. Alright, let's have a look. Okay, here we see the reset password form displayed on the screen. Let's enter a new password. Confirm. Then hit the reset password button. Okay, the password has been reset successfully, and I'll be redirected to the login page. Let me log in with my new password. Okay, it works as expected. And here, I think adding a flash message is useless, because once the password reset, it will be redirected to the login page. So, let's get rid of that from here. Okay, that's it. I'll see you in the next lesson. In this lesson, we'll see how to enable the email verification feature in our authentication system. This feature will force the registered users to verify their email before accessing certain routes in the application. Unlike other features such as registration and reset password, this feature is not active by default. So, let's enable the email verification feature in the Fortify configuration file. So here, let's find the features array. Then enable email verification. Next, let's open up the user model. Then implement this must verify email contract. Let's give this a save. Back to our browser. Then register a new user. Now, once a user is registered, a new email verification is sent. So here it is. However, before we hit the verification link, let's attach the verified middleware in our routes declaration. So, if we open up the http kernel.php in the app http folder, then go to the route middleware. Here we find verified, which refers to illuminate. Auth middleware, ensure email is verified. As the name suggests, this middleware is to ensure that the authenticated user is verified. Now, let's go to our routes declaration. Then attach the verified middleware after the auth middleware. So now, if we refresh the page, we'll be redirected to the email verified route. We get an error because we haven't registered the email verified view. Alright, let's open up Fortify Service Provider. Then register the verified email view by calling verify email view method. Pass a closure, and we'll return auth.verify email view. Next, let's open a random view file. Save the file as a new file. I'll put it inside the auth folder. And name it verify email. Clear the content. And change the title to verify your email. Go to the app template and open the verifyemail.html. Let's copy the main content. Back to our project, then paste it into the section content. Let's replace the name with authenticated user's name. Then, let's print out the session status before we actually show it in the alert. Now, for the form action, let's see our routes. So, here we'll use this verification.send route. Back to our editor. Then set the form action. Set the method to post. And then add the CSRF directive. Let's have a look. Okay, here we see an email verification page displayed on the screen. Let's hit the Reset Email Verification button to resend new email verification. And here we see the status. Let's copy the status back to our view. Then show the flash message in the alert. Let's try again. Okay, the flash message is now displayed nicely. Now, I'll go to Mail Trap. Then verify my email by hitting this Verify Email Address button. Okay, since my email was verified, now I can access the dashboard page. In this lesson, we'll see how to add an Update User Profile feature to our application. Alright, let's switch over to our terminal, then see our routes. So, here we'll use this user profile information.update route. Since Laravel Fortify only provides a route and controller for updating the profile information, but does not provide a route and controller for displaying the form, we'll need to create them manually. So, let's create a new controller. I'll place it inside the Settings folder. And I call it Profile Controller as an invocable controller. Okay, let's open up the Profile Controller file. Inside the invoke method, let's return a view. You may put the view in the auth folder as we did before. However, I'll put it in the Settings folder. Let's also pass the currently authenticated user to the view. I'll change the view to profile information to be much clearer. Next, let's open up a blade file. Then save it as a new file. I'll create a folder inside the Views folder, Settings. Then save the file as profileinformation.blade.php. Let's change the title. Then remove everything inside the section content. Let's switch to the app template. Open the profile.html, then copy the main content. Back to our project, then paste the code. Next, let's go to our routes declaration. Then define a new route for the profile controller. Here the route path will be Settings, Profile Information. It is handled by the profile controller. And we'll name it User Profile Information.edit. Then, let's open up the main layout. Find the Settings link. And we'll change the link's target to our newly created route. Let's also change the link's text to profile. Let's give this a save and have a look. Here we see the Edit Profile form displayed on the screen. However, here we see the profile picture is broken. Let's go back to the app template. And here we need to add Jasny Bootstrap CSS, as well as Jasny Bootstrap JavaScript file references. So, let's copy this line. Back to our main layout. And here, since the JASNI file references are only needed by the user profile information view, placing them in the main layout is not a good choice, because they will always be loaded by all pages. A better way is to use the blade stack directive like so. This will render the stack contents which define in the child view with the given name. Now, let's go to the profile information view. Then push to the script stack of this file reference. Then adjust the file path. Back to the app template. Copy the file reference. Back to here. Then push to the style stack. This file reference. Don't forget to adjust the file path. Let's have a look. Okay, now the profile picture looks better. Let's move on to the next video and see how to make the form work. Alright, here in our view, let's wrap this card with a form element. Set the form action to the user profile information.update route. Set the method to post. Then add a CSRF directive. Since this route uses an HTTP put method, let's specify the method here. Let's also print out the session status to see the status once the update succeeds. Next, let's adjust the form inputs. Let's make multiple selections for the name attribute, plus the equal sign, except for the profile picture input. Then copy the actual name. Once copied, let's add a value attribute. Then call the Laravel old helper function. Paste the name in the first argument. And then in the second argument, we call the user object. Then specify the attribute name. Let's remove this invalid feedback. Also, this is invalid class. Then, let's do a similar way for the name and email inputs. Go to the class attribute. Then, after form control, let's add in is invalid class when an error occurs. Let's also add the validation error message. Let's give it a save. Back to our browser. Refresh. Then I'll change the name and hit the Update Profile button. It seems that the profile has been updated successfully. Here, let's copy this session status. And we'll place the alert here before the name input. Back to our form. remove the session status. Then before the name input, let's show an alert. Let's have a look. Sorry, I made a typo here. It should be session. Okay, the profile has been updated. Now, I'll clear a required input, then hit the button. However, we don't see any validation error messages. We'll fix that in the next lesson. In this lesson, we'll customize the Update User Profile feature. So, here I made this input empty, which is required. However, when I hit the Update Profile button, I cannot see the validation error message. To fix this issue, let's switch over to our editor. Go to the App folder, then Actions, Fortify folder. Then open this file. Sorry, it should be the Update User Profile information. Here we see it uses validate with bag method to validate a request and store any error messages within a named error bag. Now, let's replace it with the validate method. If we give it a save, back to the browser, and hit the Update Profile button. Now the validation error message appears. Next, let's add extra columns to the users table, as we see in this form. Let's open up our terminal, then create a new migration. Let's open our newly created migration. Inside the up method, let's add a phone column and a string. We'll put it after the email column and make it nullable. Let's duplicate this line 4 times. Change the second column to company, and we'll place it after the phone column. Change the third column to country, and we'll place it after the company column. The next column will be address, and we'll place it after the country column. The last column will be profile picture, and we'll place it after the address column. Alright, let's copy these lines. Go to the down method and paste the code here. Make multiple selections to the string methods. Once selected, let's change them to the drop column. Then remove the rest. Okay, let's give this a save. Back to our terminal, then migrate our last migration file. Now, since we've added some extra columns to the users table, let's go back to the Update User Profile Information class. Here in the Update method, let's add additional rules for other inputs. The phone input will be nullable, string, and maximum 255. Other inputs will be the same. except for the profile picture. It will be nullable, an image. Below that, we'll see an if-else statement. So, if users change their email while updating their profile, an email verification feature is enabled. This method will be called. Otherwise, this code will be run. So, what we need to do is to provide extra input from both sides. So, let's add phone, company, country, and address. We'll skip the profile picture for now, since we haven't implemented the upload file feature. Let's select these lines, copy, and paste them here. Last, let's modify the fillable attribute in the user model. So here, let's add phone, company, country, and address. Actually, let's also add the profile picture, so we don't have to come back here when we implement the file upload. Let's give it a save and have a look. Let me enter a fake phone, a fake company, my country, and a fake address. Then hit the Update Profile button. Okay, the profile has been updated. However, the address input is still empty. Let me check. I made a mistake placing the old helper function in the value attribute. It should be here. Okay, now it works as expected. In this lesson, we'll add another feature that allows users to update their password. This feature is similar to the reset password feature. However, since it is used by currently authenticated users, it will need the current user's password, a new password input, as well as a password confirmation. If we take a look at our routes, Laravel Fortify only provides a route for updating the password. So, we need to create a new route and controller to show the form manually. Alright, let's create a new controller. We'll put it in the setting folder as we did before. And make it an invocable controller. Let's open our newly created controller. Return a view. Settings.password. And I think we don't need to pass any data to our view. Let's open up the profile information view. Save the file as a new file and call it password.blade.php. Let's adjust the title of the page and clear everything inside the section content. Let's also get rid of these lines. Next, let's go to the app template. Then open the password.html and copy the main content. Back to our project. Then paste the previous code inside the section content. Let's find the div card element. Then wrap it with a form. Let's set the action to the user password.update route. Set the method to post. Add a CSRF directive. And then specify the method to put. Let's also print out the session status. Now, if we open the update user password file, here it needs the current password and password. And if we take a look at password rules, it has the confirmed rule, which needs password confirmation input to confirm our password. And if we take a look at our form, everything we need is ready, except we need to handle the validation stuff. So let's do that now. Alright, let's now define a new route to show this form. Let's open the web.php. Duplicate this route definition. Change the route path to settings, password. It is handled by the password controller. And we'll name it user password.edit. Now, to access our newly created form, we need to provide a link in our view. So, let's open up the user profile view. Here, we'll share this navigation for the user profile and update password views. So, let's cut this call MD3. Create a new file. _sitenav.blade.php. Paste the code. And then update the password link's target to the user password.edit route. And for the profile link, it would be user profile information.edit. To apply this active class dynamically, we can utilize the route as method to check the current route and apply the class. Let's do the same thing with the password link. Back to update password view, then include the sitenav subview. Let's do the same thing to the password view. Okay, let's give this a save and have a look. Let's open the Update Password page. Let's keep the inputs empty, then hit the Update Password button. But here, we cannot see any validation error message. So to fix that, here in the Update User Password, let's replace the validate with bag with the validate method. Okay, let's try again. Okay, the validation error messages appear. Now, let me enter my current password. Enter my new password. Confirm. Then hit the Update Password button. It seems to work. Let's copy this session status. Back to our Update Password view. Then show a message in an alert. Back to here. Then update the password once again. Hit the Update Password button. Okay, our new feature works as expected.